You know me. I just like to make sure. I like to try to pretend like I'm serious, but it's so hard not to be because it's like obviously I hope you know that I'm joking, but I know like some people might think I'm joking. I mean, or I'm serious. Sorry, not joking.
I feel like at heart you are a little bit of a joke, like a joker though. You like stir the pot a little bit.
I do like to stir the pot, man. Speaking of stirring the pot, I got a new recipe fermenting right now. I'm making a cocoa sourdough loaf that I'm gonna probably implement some chocolate chips once it's gonna ferment for about 5 hours, and then I'm gonna stretch it out, put some chocolate chips in there, and then roll it up, shape it, and then I'm gonna put it in the fridge for about till tomorrow, and then bake it tomorrow. And then I might do. I'm getting really uh, good at this. I'm gonna get a regular dough in there too for tomorrow. Um, I did switch things up, made it a little bit easier. So I started putting like my start instead of feeding my starter every day. Um, and this is what I was literally doing, and this is why it was so much work before. But now I store my starter in the fridge if I'm not gonna make a dough in that day. And then like this morning, I took it out and fed it, and then by like I don't know, what was it, like 10 or 11, it pretty much was ready. You could tell when it's ready. And then I made the dough and I was like, yeah, you know what? That was pretty fast. So I fed it again. And then I'm going to make a regular dough because I'm like, I have one slice left of my like standard sourdough loaf that I like to have for like sandwiches. You know, like you hipsters with your avocado toast with an egg on top. Roman was calling me out last time for saying that. Or millennial, did you call me?
Yep.
Uh, but no, I'm excited. And one of my friends actually bought me a Dutch oven. So I've never used a Dutch oven, never had one, and he of course got me a purple one. So shout out to you, Ryan. Thank you for that as like a housewarming gift. I actually got and while I was doing that cocoa dough, which man, I'm so excited to try. Um, I got I was getting a pot roast ready for dinner tonight, and then I got in the oven right now at 350. It's gonna sit there for about 3.5 hours, and ooh, baby, when it gets out, it's gonna be juicy.
Oh, I love it. Did you sweeten it all? Add any sugar?
For the bread or the pot roast?
The bread, sorry, like the
It
cocoa
was
sourdough.
yeah, it was only I only did about 50 grams of brown sugar, that sweet sugar with the molasses. Mwah.
Wow. Okay, I'm really intrigued to see how this is.
Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy how well we talked about it? Well, actually, yeah, we definitely talked about this. How crazy, like how easy to make brown sugar is, and yet I still have never made it. Like I just buy the store bought.
Man, actually, I feel like it's such like a pain in the neck because it's like you add the molasses and then you're like over there like mixing. No matter what you do, like there's a reason why like the saying "slow as molasses" is like so like potent because you're like over there and you're just like mixing it and mix and it sticks on everything. So you're like taking it off of your like spoon, mixing it and mixing
Oh
it
yeah,
like spoon, mixing it and mixing it, and then you're like, no, like this isn't enough. And then more and more, it's like getting the ratios right is like so challenging sometimes, and it doesn't matter because it's like if you want like brown sugar, then it's like you just add a little bit. Um, yeah, it's pretty like simple, straightforward. But I feel like it's like much more labor intensive than like you'd think.
and that's again, that's why like like with the bread sourcing, like obviously I'm doing that on my own, and we're trying to reuse stuff more, and so yeah, I mean, maybe eventually I buy the molasses and sugar and just mix my own. But I was like, you know what? Like like at least I mean, man, some of these sourdough Fatianis, that's what I would like to call them. They like mill their own flour and stuff, and I'm like, geez Louise, like okay, let me stick this out for like a couple months. So like I don't have like any of the tools that like people use. Like I just got a Dutch oven. Like I was using like what I call a ghetto Dutch oven because I was making my own pretty much. But like You should like, dude. I watched a video. The guy recommended like 6 tools, and they're like over $300. I'm like, golly, like I'm just here trying to make something that's not processed and what's cheap for me and my family, right? Like that's all I'm trying to do. So what I would say, it's kind of like working out, right? We'll bring it back to working out. Like unless you like do something specific for such a long time, there is no point on making the investment into making the job, I guess, easier. Because like all those like a bench scraper, I don't have like, it's hard to scrape out with like the dough and like getting it off the sides. Yeah, cool. But like I can also put it in warm water and just wipe it off with a paper towel and just clean it off afterwards. But you know what I'm saying? Like it kind of brings you around that fitness thing. Like when people ask me like what's in my gym bag, or we've done a series of that, what's in your gym bag, and it actually, wow, it comes back to the topic of today too. Um, like they'll ask me like what's in my gym bag, and then like I'll point every little thing out, and then like if you actually like tally up my gym bag, like if I put everything in my gym bag, right, it'd be like $500. Like yeah, $500 is expensive, right? Like holy cow, I would never tell you to get into powerlifting and bodybuilding and spend $500 right away. I'd rather tell you to do it for like 5 years, maybe a year, maybe 5 years might be too long, and then get something like every couple months or to a year. Like my Inzer belt, I just showed it to one of the guys at the gym the other day. It's a powerlifting belt, and guess what? I've had it for like 8 or 9 years, and it was a gift, so I didn't even buy it, but I know it was over $100, and it's still like brand new. I mean, yeah, it's like chalky, sweaty, and yeah, of course, it's not gonna be like perfect, but like, it's like it's still like such a great investment. And then guess what? I started doing belt training again, and now I have a handy dandy, solid belt that I use, and I've used my pretty much for like yeah, like 9 years, 10 years, and man, it must have been, I don't even know. No, I think it must be more than 10 years because I was still living with my parents, and I was 21 when I moved out. I'll be 30 this year. So yeah, it's probably about 10 years actually. But yeah, anyways, um, but it's kind of like that with the sourdough thing. Like I don't want to invest in like these certain tools, like the Dutch oven. Like Dutch ovens are not expensive, but like I wasn't willing to buy one, and then Ryan was like, "Oh, let me buy you a purple one," and I was like, "Sure, I'm not gonna tell you no. Like, cool, do what you want with your money."
That's wicked nice. I love it.
But did you? Oh, Roman, before we get into things, because there's still a lot to talk about, obviously. Did you end up ever getting sick? I forgot to ask you. And are you doing okay now?
Yeah, I'm feeling better. I did get sick. Yeah,
Aye,
I
you
caught
got
up.
bit?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it was, but it's like this. I think it's a virus, like the same thing that's going around with people, like sore throat, headache,
Oh yeah, I had that.
pains and aches. Like, yeah, I think I got it from my niece. Unfortunately, she's just been coughing, 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 and like you spend a lot of time with a 4-year-old because they demand all your attention. So I think I ended up getting sick from her. I'm like probably. I'm probably 90% better, I'd say, but it's stuck around. So like I first
Oh
started
yeah.
symptoms Thursday of last week.
Yeah,
So
mine lingered around like almost 2 weeks, buddy. Like it was bad.
and over a week, I'm like, man, I'm usually better from something like this in like 2-3 days max,
Yeah.
and then the fourth day I'm like 90%. But I just have like the only real symptom now is I've got like this persistent like sore throat. It's like super minor now. So cross your fingers, it's like on the mend. But
When you wake up in the morning or throughout the day?
um it just feels like super phlegmy when I wake up. It feels like phlegmy and like a little raw, but like as the day goes on, it gets like worse and worse. And then it's like worse. Um but I because of it, pretty cool. I stopped drinking coffee for a week. So
Wow, way to reset your system.
yeah, it was actually really intriguing. So my first cup was this morning, and it was like, oh my goodness, it was like a whole new world. I was like, man. Like I'm not doing this for a while. Like, I miss coffee. Like, it's just like I miss the taste, the smell, like the feel of like the warm beverage in the back of your throat, like the like not head rush, but it's like better mental like acuity that it gives me, like the sharpness and whatnot. Like all my actions are like that much like finer. Like I'm typing like, a million emails in the morning. I'm just like like, whoa, productivity through the roof. The interesting thing is I thought my productivity would have dipped a whole lot more, and I had like much more brain like fog and like brain fatigue. I feel like I couldn't get in the zone as long for like different tasks, but I was still fairly like efficient and productive. So it just kind of like confirms for me that that like serves as an ergogenic, but it's like on like the margins, right? So it makes me think back on when I hit that like plateau with barbell incline. I think I like could not get by 185 by 7. I was stuck there for like 6-8 weeks or something like that. And I was like, I'm just gonna have like a little bit more caffeine, and I'm gonna have some cheap carbs, like I threw back some Mike and Ike. So I made a silly video, like go back to, I think it was like
Oh,
2021.
I remember this exact story, by the way.
So I stuck back like 4 ounces of like very, very strong coffee. And like in a French press. And then like a serving worth of Mike, 17 Mike and Ikes. I just throw it all back, and I like jog over to the gym. It was probably like, 10 minutes, get a quick warm up in. And like by the time I was about to hit the set, it was probably like, that approximately 30 minutes when it's like the proposed mechanisms of like caffeine start to take effect. So I go to hit it, and boom, 185 by 8. Like I broke through 7. So it wasn't like I didn't hit like 185 by like 12 or 15, but like I definitely like smashed through that plateau. So pretty interesting that like on the margins it can be quite impactful and quite helpful. Is it like this like brain bender product that is gonna like change your world? No, but like I don't know, you shouldn't expect that either. So for like short to moderate duration like physical activity, I think caffeine can be like super impactful. I say moderate because like as you get into like longer duration, meaning more than like a couple of minutes of like intense like physical activity, I think some endurance athletes and coaches like might recommend it, but as you're getting into like longer endurance type stuff, I think that it can kind of counteract and like work against you. Like coffee in particular can like serve as a diuretic, so it can like pull some like water from your cells, and I think that ultimately that might have like a negative or a deleterious effect. But for like resistance exercise training, bodybuilding, for example, I love just like a little extra caffeine. I'm pretty like sensitive to it. So if I were to have like 2 cups in the morning, my anxiety like goes through the roof. But if I were to have like a cup and a half, it's like fine. I usually stick to like probably 6 to 8 fluid ounces of like a decently strong cup of French press coffee.
Yeah, and back to your point about missing coffee. So we ordered like a bulk order of protein not too long ago, and just because of the deal, it was so nice that I bought like 3 tubs or no, 2 tubs, and and then like I hit like 2 tiers on the website. It was through Redcon, which I don't really order much through like direct suppliers. But they had a deal, and it's like, they gave me like a free 2 pound tub of protein and a free like 30 servings of pre-workout. And like a lot of people know, maybe on the channel, maybe not on the channel, maybe off the channel. I don't take pre-workout as much anymore or at all. Kind of like Roman as well. Because like me, it's like mid-afternoon or mid-morning that I'm working out. Most of the time it's like morning. But like because I got that free pre-workout, I've been missing coffee lately because like I'll train. So I train right now 5 days a week, and then like my off days, do activities or walk or whatever the case is. And what I'll do is I'll have pre-workout instead of like coffee. So I'll delay like the pre-workout for like maybe like the first 2 hours I'm waking up, or like after the 2 hours. And then like 3 days go by when I'm doing like 3 days of straight pre-workout. I'm like, damn. On the next day, like when it's like my off day, my rest day, I'm like, Ooh, man, I miss that coffee. Like, but I'm the same way. Like today I had just a pre-workout today, and then I worked out mid-morning, and that's pretty much about it. Like, I'm pretty good throughout the day. And yeah, same with Roman. Anxiety goes up. Honestly, not just anxiety, but like when it comes to like the second or third cup of coffee, my stomach, it gets an actual like pain. It gets roughed on my digestive system, and like it's even rougher like if I drink like a second or third cup of coffee before lunch when I have an empty stomach, it just goes downhill from there. It's sad because it's like it's probably Roman thinks this too, because like I wish it didn't, but I'm like okay about it obviously, but like I like the taste of coffee, so it's like it'd be nice to be able to drink like 2 or 3 cups without any problems. But I know I can't, like, because we chug probably a bunch of water throughout the day, and so it's like kind of a good, like, a switch, a good switch here and there. Um, and then I did want to comment like on the endurance athletes, like obviously Roman knows this too and whatnot, but like, that's why the whole the popular like propaganda on electrolytes are so big right now, because of like those endurance athletes, or like Stan Efforting, like even if you're doing a hard like powerlifting or bodybuilding training session, to at least like add salt in your water if you're healthy, if you don't have any like prior problems, or if you're like an endurance athlete, who also doesn't have any health issues, right? So we want to make that clear. But like you could kind of mix that in, and also too, I guess when I mix my own electrolyte drink, I'll do it like mostly just in the mornings, sometimes at like nights, if I didn't like really get in a bunch of like fluid ounces, or if I didn't eat like a bunch of salt throughout the day or have like salt. But I'll throw in the chemically sugar-free flavoring. Why not? It's a trade-off. I make my own bread now. I'm getting rid of like the processed stuff right there. I throw it in my water. Who cares?
No,
Um,
I do think that it's like the products like Liquid IV and like all those things, like I think that they're like far too expensive.
oh yeah.
The price for value for me doesn't make sense, but I think it's a phenomenal product from what I understand about it. I've never used it myself, so this is only coming from like personal testimonials from like my brother, like maybe from you, like other people that have like used that, or other like electrolyte products. Like I have a buddy, if he goes like on a bender, his like big thing is he always has a Pedialyte on hand, and like the next morning when he wakes up, he's like a little hungover or whatever. Pedialyte, and he said recovery time is that much like quicker.
Yeah.
Typically, like part of like that experience is like due to you being like partially dehydrated. So I think it is good. The biggest thing with like electrolytes and like introducing like more salt into your diet, like you have to be active. You have to be physically active, and specifically towards like endurance type activity. With like resistance exercise training, if it's a considerable like session, probably like 30 plus minutes of like hard rigorous resistance exercise training, many studies suggest that it's similar to endurance, the endurance like aerobic endurance activities, especially in regards to your heart health. So there are some people that have to take into consideration the negative effects of like increasing electrolytes. So those that have high blood pressure, maybe those that have like heart problems, and those that are inactive have those as well. Because increasing your salt does you no good if you're already sedentary, meaning that you don't move around a lot. But if you're active, this is something that I hear time and time again, even from those in like the type of industry that we talk about, so like the fitness industry. Even those individuals, they'll talk about experiencing cramps during like long duration like physical activity, like a half marathon or marathon, for example. Oftentimes it's like unavoidable, but if you had a prolonged and protracted approach at your hydration. I think hydration is probably the number one thing when it comes to being physically prepared for some type of a long duration aerobic endurance activity. So even those that like seemingly either should or are aware of these kind of things, they still underdose it. So it's a really fascinating like paradox, and like it makes sense the more I learn about like the effects of like proper hydration. But there's definitely certain groups that have to be cognizant about like increasing their salt intake. So I always like to note that.
Yeah, and like Roman was saying, like for me, it's more like an hour or a little bit more than an hour of like vigorous training and 15 to 20 minutes of like sauna afterwards. Someone like me, yeah, like I mean, I'll sweat like a ton through my workout, and then in the sauna as well. Um, and then like in the summertime, like it's definitely a lot worse because I'm outside more, and I'm sweating a ton outside. So it just depends on the season too, especially like if you're in like a place where it gets hot and cold. Um, and your boy never cramps because he takes care of his hydration. Besides when he did the marathon. Oh, I cramped during the marathon a little bit, not too bad. I think it was like around mile like 19. I had a pretty severe cramp where I was like, I was downing salt sticks and then like water as well. And then like I think when they had bananas, I ate like 2 or 3 of them. Um, but yeah, and that brings to like the topic. Like obviously we're gonna name this, but like Roman was saying, like liquid IV. I've used it when I was marathon training. I used it. I used it. I used it. Cost quite a big penny. I didn't use it really as much like unless I was training. So like the non-days, I was just trying to eat really good, eat really well, drink a lot of good fluids, and whatnot. But like what he was saying is like, it's like even if you did Pedialyte, I think Pedialyte is probably the cheaper version of like the elements, the liquid IVs, and then whatever brands are out there. I really don't care to name them all or understand them all. But like they're more than $1 a serving. So like I've said before, like if you're really like, very into like electrolytes and you want to like do something yourself, for me, like I went to Element's website, got the dosages, I have a scale, bought the raw ingredients, and I make it myself. So it's like you could always even someone like me who trains pretty hard 5 days a week. I know that like if I bought Liquid IV, like yeah, it would be a good investment, sure. Or Element or Pedialyte, yeah, it'd be a good investment. But it's like there's always a point to it's like less is more, right? Less is always more when it comes to like these activities. Unless you got all kinds of money, guys, then I would just stop listening to this podcast altogether. This episode, at least. Like, if you had money was never an issue, then this episode's definitely not for you because, like, buy all the liquid IV you can. Shit, get sponsored by them and then have them pay you. um,
I disagree.
What's that?
I disagree. Like, I understand what you're saying, but like, I think the principle is like important to consider in like other areas too. So like, I have like kind of been forced into utilizing like the less is more principle, like with my physical activity, because like the last few weeks I've been watching a 4-year-old. So there might be times where like my wife is at work, my brother's either at work or he's doing something else. So I'm the only adult in the household. So like, I want to get physical activity, and what's that look like? That might be us like walking around like the front of the backyard blowing bubbles, I'm not in my basement doing resistance exercise training. I'm not doing like dumbbell incline like flies or anything like that. I'm not doing rafter pull-ups, which is like what I'd ideally like to do, but basement is a disaster right now, so I'm not in a construction zone. So like many times I find that for me, the best bang for my buck when it comes to like programming, I tend to enjoy workouts the most when I'm probably between like 15 to 21 sets. that's where like I can get in the zone. I can get a good pump on like whatever, like, 2 or 3 muscle groups I'm working on, sometimes more per session. I can be like pretty efficient with my time because, we're all busy. We got a lot of stuff going on in life. And like when I tend to creep above that, that's when like I'm like, I feel like a little guilty because I'm like, oh, I'm taking a little bit too much time, either from like being able to like spend it with my wife or like, work on the house, like projects on the house, help out my brother. Like thank God for him because he does like a lot of the manual labor at the house. So thank you, bro. Or like, I'm not spending enough time with like the 4-year-old, for example. So what I've had to do, and obviously I've been sick recently, is I have to drop those sets way down. So I might only be able to give myself 30 minutes a day. And that's totally because I can find that time, early, wake up early in the morning, like late at night, if like, God forbid she falls asleep, which is like never, she hates sleeping. But I'll go and I'll do like 6 to 10 sets, right? And if I make them like really hard or I make them targeted on a certain thing, like I'm trying to like work on recovery right now and just feel better. So yesterday it was, I think, a set of abs, a set of like quad work. I just did like what's called like quadruple leg extension. So I'm on all fours and you just essentially like straighten your knees. And I did that until like my knees or like my quads were on fire. I did a version of dumbbell RDLs. I did 2 sets of calves and I think 2 sets of shoulders for my shoulder work. What's that? 7 sets or something like that. And I biked a little bit. That was all the time I had, but that was enough to essentially like reset my mental clock, like make me feel like I'm not at least moving backwards in like my physical fitness goals, and help me like feel like I'm making progress in my like my physical health too, like from like a health and wellness, like sickness perspective, because I'm still getting over a cold. So for me, like I think the less is more principle is like really salient because there's gonna be times in your life where you're like, I can't dedicate an hour to the gym. I love to do that, but I can't.
Yeah.
And like that's okay, but like, can you find 30 minutes? Can you find 45? Can you find 15? And I think most people, if they really think about it and they rework their day, most people I think can find 15, even the busiest CEOs out there, because if you don't do that, your productivity isn't maximized. Like let's be real with each other. Like if you do not incorporate physical activity, your productivity is not maximized. Let's repeat that. If you do not incorporate physical activity, your productivity is not maximized. This is just a fact of the matter. To be able to be more efficient, to be able to stay on task, it's important that very regularly, probably 3 to 4 plus times a week, we have to have dedicated time and space for physical activity. Buddy, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I love it. I think like I love when I mean a lot of people say it in the industry we follow, but like when Ben Patrick said, like you you could watch Netflix for like 30 minutes to an hour. Why can't you do like a workout while you're watching Netflix? Like, you could do a yoga session while you're watching your TV show. And, sometimes like for me, like the alone time I get throughout the day is like work and then like maybe like 2 hours to myself at night. Like that's it. So and then like obviously the gym and whatnot, but like that could be anything, right? It's like, if you're not implementing like what Roman was saying, then like you're kind of behind on, your work, your relationships, your house, right? Like if you have a house or you rent an apartment or you live with your parents still, like you could spend, that time that you have like doing a load of laundry, cleaning the table, like stuff like that. So I really like it because it kind of brings you back to reality, especially with the time we live in, with people always saying they don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. I've heard I don't have time to like from so many people. And I've made it like very clear. Like obviously if the ask is like really, really much, like obviously like that's different. But like I've been trying to even without like working out and fitness, I've been trying to allow myself not to use that term and not to use that language because I want to make sure like I get the most out of life too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I think it's also important that like, we're gonna get into like a quick probably sales pitch here, and then we'll probably wrap it up.
Yeah.
But like when people do say that, like I will push back and be like, well, are you valuing this like this potential activity or this like action or event or something like that, or is it not in line with like your values? And people be like, no, I just said like I don't have the time for it. And it's like, okay, let's go back to like the values. Like, is this something that like you're interested in doing? And like, yeah, if I had the time for it. And like, how much time do you think you could set aside for it? 15 minutes. Okay, perfect. We're back to that 15 minutes. Like, let's try and find 15 minutes. You can do a 5-minute warm up, a 5-minute like physical activity. It could be thrusters. So like you just like squat and you lift your arms into the air type situation for a minute, and then you you do a Tabata or something, like some push-ups, and then like some crunch work on the ground, and you have a 5-minute cool down. Like, it's as easy as that.
Yeah.
And like oftentimes people say, well, like I can't do it at the end of the day because I'm like too exhausted from like work. Then it's like, all right, well, it's a simple answer. Like, you do it at the beginning of the day when you wake up. And like, I'm never a fan to like subtract from sleep, but like in life we do have to make trade-offs, right? So if you do value like doing something or some sort of like activity or event, and you think like, oh, the time commitment or whatnot, see if there's a way that you can like work it into your schedule if you do value it. If you don't value it, then it's important to say like, oh, it's of no interest to me at the moment.
Yeah.
That's fine, and that's a fair criticism. Like, even at work too, like, it's important. Like, the modern workplace is pervasive with how they will try to put more on you. Believe me, I know, like, at like 4 a.m. it works like past hours, and logs off, right? So that's not fair to us. So it's important that we set like boundaries and have like a principled approach. And like, if it is something that you like do want to do, or you can't like physically do, it's okay to say no, like turn down certain things. So yeah, that's just like my thing with like the whole time thing. I like, as a sales rep, I just see it as like, it's an objection that can be overcome by better understanding like what's at the root of the problem. Like, do you really not have like the 15 minutes for it, or are you like not interested in potentially like doing physical activity that day? And that's totally fine, but that's more in line with like how you're feeling, how you're doing, than the generic excuse of like, oh, I don't have time.
Yeah. And to wrap it up, I think, like you said, like, you have to be honest with it. It doesn't matter what it is, but you have to be honest with it. You can't really, you don't want to say like, I couldn't, I didn't do this because of yada yada yada. No, like, you just didn't do it, maybe because you just weren't interested. But thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe. Tell your mom, tell your father, tell your grandparents, tell your cousins, tell your baby cousins, tell your nieces, their nephews, to watch the Gainz podcast. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.